The restaurant was glowing with golden lights, and the sound of clinking glasses mixed with soft jazz floating through the air. It was Friday night, the busiest time of the week. Every table was filled with people dressed in fine suits and sparkling jewelry. The air smelled of expensive perfume and roasted garlic. A waiter hurried past with a tray full of wine glasses, trying not to spill a drop. Another polished silverware at the bar, hoping to catch a small tip before the night ended. In the middle of all this movement stood Maya Collins, calm and steady. Her uniform was spotless, her dark hair tied neatly back, and her eyes scanned the room with quiet focus to everyone else. She was just another waitress working the night shift. She took orders, smiled politely, and remembered every detail. But behind that calm face was a sharp mind. A woman trained to observe everything, to notice what others missed. The restaurant, called the Velvet Room, was a favorite among the city's wealthy. CEOs, politicians, and foreign investors came here to relax, discuss deals, and show off their status. The waiters were told to treat every guest like royalty. But that evening, Maya was not there just to serve food. She was there for something else, something much more serious. She had been working undercover for 2 weeks, blending perfectly into her role. Her colleagues liked her, saying she was quiet but kind. No one suspected that when she went to the back room to check on orders, she was really sending coded updates to her team through a tiny device hidden in her earpiece. Each night she gathered little pieces of information. Names mentioned, credit card numbers, conversations that didn't sound quite right, but tonight was special. Tonight was the night she had been waiting for. The CIA had received confirmation that a man connected to international crimes would be dining there. A billionaire named Leonard Crane, known for his charm in public and cruelty in private. He was rich, powerful, and untouchable, or so he thought. Maya looked at the reservation list, and her heart beat a little faster when she saw his name written on the top line. Table 7, private booth by the window, 8 p.m. sharp. She checked her reflection in a polished wine glass, making sure her expression was calm. Her eyes, however, told a different story. They were sharp, alert, ready for anything. As the clock struck 8, the restaurant doors opened and in came Leonard Crane. His entrance drew attention immediately. Tall, confident, with a cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. He wore a dark tailored suit and a watch that probably cost more than most cars. 2 men followed behind him, bodyguards or business partners. Maya couldn't tell yet, but she took mental notes. She noticed his gestures, his tone, how he looked around as if the entire place belonged to him. She greeted him politely. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Velvet Room," and he barely nodded. He didn't even look at her face, just waved his hand impatiently. "Table 7, he said, his voice low but sharp. Maya led him to the booth. Each step calculated, she kept her pace steady, neither too fast nor too slow, knowing that arrogance like his always expected others to hurry. As she handed him the menu, he didn't say thank you. Instead, he smirked and said, "Let's hope the service here is better than the last time I came. You people take forever." His tone carried the weight of insult loud enough for others nearby to hear. A few customers turned their heads, then looked away awkwardly. Maya's lips curved into a polite smile. "Of course, sir. I'll do my best to make sure everything is perfect," she replied softly. Inside, she felt a flicker of anger, but she pushed it down. She had faced worse, both in the field and in life. Her mission mattered more than her pride. She went to the kitchen, pretending to check the order slip, but instead she pressed a tiny button on her watch, activating the signal for the surveillance team. Somewhere outside, a black van received her code. The operation had officially begun. Back in the dining area, the noise of the restaurant grew louder. Laughter, cutlery, and music filled the air again. Maya carried trays, served drinks, and maintained her rhythm. Yet her focus never left table 7. She saw how Leonard laughed too loudly, bragged about his wealth, and complained about lazy staff while his companions nodded. They talked about offshore accounts, new investments, and something about moving funds before Monday. She couldn't catch everything, but she knew enough. This was the lead she needed. As she approached again with his main course, Leonard snapped his fingers. "Finally," he said with an exaggerated sigh. "Do they train you people to move in slow motion or something?" His words stung, and the laughter of his guests made it worse. Maya stayed calm, her hand steady as she placed the plate in front of him. "Enjoy your meal, sir," she said. Her tone remained gentle. But her eyes, for a brief second, revealed the fire inside her. Nobody in that fancy restaurant knew the truth. The waitress they pitied or ignored was not just a waitress. She was an undercover CIA agent who had taken down drug lords, hackers, and traitors, and tonight, she was about to expose one of the most powerful men in the country. As the night went on, Maya continued her work with grace. Each move she made looked ordinary. Pouring wine, cleaning a table, serving dessert. But every action hid a purpose. Her earpiece buzzed quietly with coded instructions. Her mind processed everything. The timing, the camera angles, the security guards' positions. By the time Leonard asked for the bill, Maya had already gathered enough evidence to justify a full-scale investigation. He didn't know that his arrogance, his insults, and his careless talk had sealed his fate. The restaurant lights glowed even brighter as he stood to leave. Still laughing, still blind to the truth, and Maya, standing near the counter, simply watched him go, calm and unshaken. Her mission was on track, and soon justice would walk through those same doors. The golden doors of the velvet room opened again, and every head in the restaurant turned. It was like time slowed for a moment. The laughter at the tables softened. The waiters straightened their backs, and the air filled with quiet expectation. Leonard Crane had arrived. He didn't walk in, he entered, the way only someone used to power does. His shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor, and his dark suit seemed to catch every bit of light in the room. His wristwatch gleamed, silver and cold, worth more than most people's yearly salary. Behind him were two men in black, tall, silent, their eyes scanning every corner like wolves guarding their alpha. Leonard smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that made people feel warm. It was thin, practiced, and empty. His face carried that expensive kind of confidence, the kind that comes from money, not kindness. The restaurant manager rushed forward, bending slightly as if greeting royalty. "Good evening, Mr. Crane," he said nervously. "We've prepared your usual table." Leonard didn't bother replying. He simply adjusted his cufflinks and said, "Make sure everything's fast tonight. I don't have patience for slow service." His voice was smooth but sharp. Cutting through the soft music in the background, Maya Collins, standing a few feet away, quietly watched the scene. Her eyes followed his every move, every gesture, every look. She already knew who he was, his habits, his associates, even the pattern of his offshore transfers. But seeing him in person was different on the surface. He looked like any successful businessman. Handsome, clean-cut, confident. But Maya could sense the darkness behind his charm. She'd met people like him before. People who smiled for cameras while hiding crimes beneath their gold-plated lives. Leonard reached his table and sat down, glancing at the wine list as if bored. "Do you have the 2015 Bordeaux?" he asked without looking up. "Yes, sir," Maya said politely, her voice calm and even. "Would you like me to bring the bottle?" He raised an eyebrow, finally meeting her eyes for the first time. There was something cold there, something that said he saw her not as a person but as part of the furniture. "Just hurry," he said. "I don't have all night." Maya nodded and walked toward the bar. Behind her calm movements, her heart beat with steady rhythm. She was trained to control it, to stay composed under pressure. But inside, she could feel the tension rising. She knew tonight wasn't just about serving dinner. It was about gathering proof, listening carefully, and staying invisible. At the bar, she gave a small nod to the bartender, who was also part of the operation. He slid the wine bottle across the counter, his hand brushing against hers for a second. A signal that the recording device in the cork was active. Maya returned to the table, her steps graceful, her face unreadable. Leonard and his two companions were already deep in conversation, their voices low, their expressions serious. "The money needs to move before the end of the week," one of them whispered. Leonard smirked. "Don't worry, the files are handled." "They won't trace a thing," Maya pretended not to hear, but every word was being picked up by the tiny microphone hidden in her earring. She poured the wine slowly, the deep red liquid swirling like silk. Leonard leaned back, watching her. "You've got steady hands," he said suddenly. Maya smiled politely. "Thank you, sir," she replied. "You're new here, aren't you?" he asked, glancing at her name tag. "Maya, right?" She nodded. "Yes, sir, just a few weeks." "Figures," he said with a small laugh. "Let's hope you last longer than the others. The service in this city is always disappointing." His tone was half joke, half insult. Maya kept her expression soft. "I'll do my best, sir," she said. Her training told her not to react, but she couldn't help thinking about how many people he had spoken to that way, how many he had made feel small. Still, she had a mission, and she wouldn't let emotion interfere. Leonard picked up his glass and raised it slightly. "To power," he said. His friends echoed him. "To power." The 3 glasses clinked, and somewhere outside, a van full of agents heard the sound through their earpieces. A simple toast, but one that confirmed their coded phrase. It was the sign they had been waiting for. As the meal continued, Leonard's arrogance filled the room like perfume, strong and unpleasant. He bragged about his latest deal, how he had outsmarted competitors, how politicians owed him favors. Maya listened quietly as she cleared plates. Her body moved like a shadow. Present but unnoticed, she caught fragments of conversation, words like fund transfers, offshore, and private accounts. Each piece was another brick in the wall of evidence. At one point, Leonard snapped his fingers. "Excuse me," he said sharply. "You forgot the lemon slice for my water." His voice carried across the room, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Maya turned gracefully and said, "Apologies, sir, I'll bring it right away." His smirk widened. "You should be quicker if you want to keep this job," he said, chuckling. Inside, Maya wanted to say something back, to remind him that she wasn't his servant, but she stayed quiet. Her strength wasn't in her words. It was in her patience. Her silence was her weapon. Minutes later, she returned with the lemon, placed it gently on his glass, and stepped back. Leonard didn't even say thank you. But she didn't need his gratitude because as he lifted the glass, the camera in her pendant caught his reflection. The smug look, the phone on the table, and the small, encrypted device connected to it. Everything she needed was now recorded. Leonard laughed at a joke one of his friends made, completely unaware that his entire conversation, his phone data, and his behavior were being transmitted live to a CIA server just a few blocks away. To everyone else in the restaurant, he was just a rich man having dinner. To Maya, he was a criminal whose empire was about to crumble. And as she stood there holding her tray, she felt a quiet satisfaction, not from revenge, but from justice slowly taking shape. The billionaire had made his entrance, but he didn't know that this time, he had walked straight into a trap. The restaurant was alive with chatter, forks tapping against plates, and laughter echoing from every corner. Maya moved between tables with graceful steps, carrying trays like a dancer balancing rhythm and control. Her body was calm, but her mind was sharp, alert, counting every second, every word, every move from the man at table 7. Leonard Crane was halfway through his meal, surrounded by luxury and ego. He leaned back in his chair, his gold cufflinks flashing under the warm light. His companions talked softly, but his voice always overpowered theirs. "You see, that's the problem with people who work for me," he said. "They don't think fast enough." He spoke as if the world existed to please him. Maya approached with a small smile, holding a tray of bread rolls and butter. "Excuse me, sir, would you like another glass of wine?" she asked politely. Leonard barely turned his head. "Finally," he said, "do they teach you to move this slow? Or is it just natural talent?" His tone was loud, sharp and dripping with sarcasm. The nearby tables grew quiet for a moment. A couple sitting across looked down at their plates, pretending not to hear. Maya felt the sting of his words, but she hid it behind her calm smile. "Apologies, sir. I'll make sure to be quicker," she said softly. Leonard smirked, satisfied with himself. "You should," he replied. "When people pay this much for food, they don't want to wait for amateurs." He laughed, and his friends joined in. Trying to impress him, their laughter sounded hollow, forced and cruel. Maya turned away and walked toward the kitchen, her hands steady, her breathing even. Inside, she repeated the same thought. Stay calm. Stay focused. She had been trained for this. In her years with the agency, she had faced interrogations, danger, and deception. But insults like this, they were different. They targeted the soul, not the mission. In the kitchen, she leaned against the counter for a brief second. The chef looked at her with concern. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded. "Just another customer," she replied, then straightened up. She couldn't afford emotion. Not tonight. She glanced at her wristwatch, the small device blinking softly, confirming that every sound from table 7 was being transmitted. As she stepped back into the dining area, she replayed his voice in her mind. The tone, the rhythm, the arrogance. Each detail could reveal something. In her experience, people like Leonard often said too much when they felt powerful. She noticed how he laughed louder when he lied, how his hand twitched near his phone when he mentioned money. Leonard raised his glass again. "You know what I can't stand?" he said loudly. "Incompetence. I built my empire by cutting out weak people. I don't reward slow service or slow thinking." His words carried across the room like a performance, a show of dominance. Maya placed a plate in front of him and said quietly, "Here's your main course, sir. Please enjoy." But Leonard wasn't done. "You're new here, right?" he asked suddenly. She nodded. "Yes, sir." "That explains it," he said, smirking. "You'll learn if you last long enough. But if you keep working like this, don't expect big tips from me." His companions chuckled, and Maya stood there, still and composed. "Thank you for the advice, sir," she said calmly, then walked away, her back straight, her eyes unblinking. Every step she took reminded her of the mission, not revenge, but justice. At her station near the bar, Maya adjusted her earpiece slightly. A quiet voice came through. "Agent Collins, we're receiving everything. Stay steady," she whispered under her breath. "Copy that." Her voice didn't tremble, but her heart did. Not from fear, but from anger disguised as focus. Meanwhile, Leonard continued his arrogant display, bragging about his investments, how he manipulated stock prices, how he paid people to keep secrets. "You just need to know who to buy," he said, chuckling. Maya listened from a distance. Pretending to clean a table, her earpiece recorded every word. A waiter bumped into her accidentally, spilling a drop of water. "Sorry," he whispered. "It's okay," she replied softly. She didn't take her eyes off Leonard. She could sense he was hiding something behind all that pride. Leonard waved his hand impatiently. "Where's my dessert? It's been forever," he complained. Maya walked over. "Coming right up, sir," she said. He sighed loudly. "You really need to learn some speed, sweetheart." The word sweetheart came out like a slap. She froze for half a second, then smiled again. "Of course, sir," she said. The guests around the room looked uncomfortable. A woman near the bar whispered to her husband, "That poor girl." But Maya wasn't a victim. She was in control. Every insult was just another line in the story that would end with his downfall. Back in the kitchen, she picked up the dessert, chocolate mousse, perfectly plated. She took a deep breath, reminding herself, "Don't react. Don't lose focus." She carried the dish back to table 7 and placed it gently in front of him. Leonard didn't even look at her. He was busy checking his phone, texting someone under the table. Maya noticed, subtly leaning closer as if adjusting the napkin. Her pendant camera caught the phone screen. A glimpse of numbers, messages, and a code that matched the one from the CIA file. That single second was gold, proof hidden inside arrogance. Leonard finally looked up. "You can go now," he said coldly. "And next time, try not to take all night." Maya nodded and walked away. Inside her chest, her heart beat fast. She knew this was the moment she'd been waiting for. The insult had opened the door she needed. The more he underestimated her, the more careless he became. From the corner of the restaurant, she watched him laugh. She saw the pride, the greed, the blindness that comes with too much power. And she thought to herself, "You have no idea who you just insulted, because tonight, the billionaire had crossed a line. Not just of respect, but of fate. And soon the waitress he mocked would be the woman who brought his empire crashing down." 2 weeks before that night at the Velvet Room, Maya Collins sat in a small, gray room deep inside a government facility in Washington. The walls were bare except for a digital clock that ticked softly. She wore a black suit instead of her waitress uniform, her hair tied tightly, her eyes sharp and serious. Across the table sat Agent Roberts, her mentor, and one of the agency's top intelligence officers. He placed a thick folder on the table, the word confidential stamped in red across the front. "This is your new assignment," he said quietly. Maya opened it and saw the name printed in bold, Leonard Crane. Beneath it were photographs, bank records, and surveillance images. Leonard smiling at charity events, shaking hands with politicians, and sitting in luxury jets. He looked like a hero in public. But the documents told a different story. Crane is moving money through shell companies, Roberts explained. Funds that connect to illegal arms deals in Eastern Europe. He leaned forward. "We've been watching him for months, but we can't touch him without solid evidence. We need someone close, someone invisible, someone he'll never suspect." Maya looked up, her expression unreadable. "Undercover?" she asked. Roberts nodded. "You'll take the role of a waitress at the Velvet Room. It's his favorite restaurant. He dines there often. And he's careless when he's comfortable." Maya flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning numbers, messages and secret transfers. "How dangerous is he?" she asked. Roberts sighed. "Smart, arrogant, and surrounded by people who'd do anything to protect him. But his weakness," he paused, "is his ego." She leaned back in her chair, thinking she had gone undercover before in gangs, corporations, and political circles. But this mission felt different. There was something about Leonard's face that unsettled her. That cold smile, that fake charm. "You think he's connected to weapons trafficking?" she asked. Roberts nodded slowly. "We don't just think it, we know it, we just can't prove it yet." "That's where you come in." Maya took a deep breath, then closed the file. "I'll do it," she said firmly. Roberts studied her for a moment. "You understand what this means, Collins? You'll have to play the part completely. No contact, no backup unless necessary. If he suspects you, it's over." She nodded. "I know." The next morning, Maya's transformation began. Her background was rewritten, her name added to the Velvet Room's employee list, through a quiet favor from the agency's cyber team. Her phone was replaced with a secure communication device. Her necklace, earrings, and wristwatch all carried tiny cameras and transmitters. Invisible to the human eye, for days she practiced. She learned the restaurant's routine, how to serve wine, how to fold napkins, how to smile without showing nerves to anyone watching. She was just another worker trying to make a living. She studied Leonard's habits too, his favorite dishes, his schedule, his friends, the way he always ordered wine before a business talk. One night during a training session, Agent Roberts said something she never forgot. "Remember, Maya, you're not just collecting evidence. You're walking into the lion's den. The only thing protecting you is your silence, your patience, and your timing." When the day finally came, Maya stood outside the Velvet Room for the first time. The city lights reflected off the glass doors. She could see her reflection, dressed in the black and white uniform, apron tied neatly, name tag pinned perfectly. She smiled faintly, but behind that smile was a storm of focus and fear. Inside, she was greeted by the restaurant manager, a kind man who had no idea who she really was. "Welcome aboard, Maya," he said cheerfully. "We're happy to have you." She nodded. "Thank you," her voice soft. That first week was slow. She served tables, learned names, and quietly observed. She memorized which customers Leonard met, which ones seemed nervous, which ones used code words in casual conversation. Every night, she sent small encrypted reports to the agency, typed in her phone as simple text messages like, "Everything's smooth," or "Dinner at table 7 again." Then, on the 10th night, Robert's voice came through her earpiece as she wiped a table. "He's coming tonight, Maya. This is your window." Her stomach tightened, but her hands never stopped moving. She whispered, "Understood. At 8 o'clock sharp." Leonard Crane entered just as the reports had said he would. His confidence filled the room before he even spoke. Maya watched him from behind the bar, noting every gesture, every smile, every word. This was the man responsible for moving millions in dirty money, and yet, he looked like any other customer. Over the next few days, she carefully built her role around him. She was polite, quiet, and forgettable, exactly what he wanted in a server, and yet, every encounter gave her more data. Fingerprints on glasses, audio from his meetings, numbers from his phone screen reflected in the mirror behind him. But there was one thing she hadn't expected. The insults, the way he talked down to her, the arrogance that burned through his charm. Each time she reminded herself, he's not insulting you, he's revealing himself. By the end of the second week, Maya had gathered enough information to confirm the offshore accounts and the coded bank transactions. She didn't have all the proof yet, but she was close. Her patience was paying off. Still, every mission came with a risk, and this one was starting to feel heavier. Leonard's eyes began to linger a little longer, as if trying to remember where he'd seen her before. Once, when she brought his drink, he said, "You look familiar." Maya smiled lightly. "Maybe I just have one of those faces," she replied. When she returned to the kitchen, she sent one final coded message. Subject growing suspicious. Operation entering critical phase. She didn't know that in just a few nights, his suspicion would turn to insult, and that insult would become the spark that ended his empire. But for now, in that quiet space between lies and truth, Maya Collins stood steady, a woman hiding behind an apron, waiting for the moment the mask would finally come off. The night began like any other. Warm lights glowing across the velvet room, soft jazz echoing between the tables and waiters moving like shadows. But for Maya Collins, tonight felt different. The air was thicker, heavier, as if the city itself knew something was about to happen. She stood near the counter, tying her apron. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, but inside, her heart carried the quiet weight of tension. For days, she had played her part perfectly. The polite waitress, the quiet observer, the invisible spy. Yet she knew this mission was reaching its edge. The data had been collected, the recordings complete. Now, it was only a matter of time before the CIA made their move. Leonard Crane entered right on schedule, 8 p.m., sharp as always. His presence filled the restaurant like a storm cloud. Tonight he was louder, his voice sharper, his arrogance turned up a notch. Maybe he had a bad day, or maybe deep down, he sensed that his empire was starting to crack. Maya watched him from across the room. Her earpiece buzzed softly. Agent Roberts' voice whispered, "Stay alert, Collins, we've intercepted a message. He might be making a large transfer tonight. This could be the evidence we need." She nodded slightly, her face calm. "Understood," she whispered back. Leonard sat at his usual table by the window, scrolling through his phone, tapping furiously. His two associates joined him, both nervous, whispering under their breath. "It's risky, Leo," one said quietly. "The accounts are being watched," Leonard chuckled. "By who? The government?" "Please, they're too slow." He leaned back, smirking. "Besides, I own people who make sure those files disappear." Maya approached with a glass of wine, her movements smooth and steady. "Your usual." "Sir?" she said softly. He looked up, annoyance already in his eyes. "You again," he muttered. "Try to be faster tonight." "I'm not in the mood for mistakes." His tone was sharp, his words like small knives thrown with precision. "Of course, sir," she replied, placing the glass gently before him. Her hands didn't tremble, but her jaw tightened slightly. He didn't notice. He rarely noticed anything that didn't serve his ego. Minutes passed. The restaurant's noise grew louder. Laughter, clinking glasses, music. But at table 7, tension hung like smoke. Leonard's phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen and smiled. "Perfect timing," he said to his friends. "It's going through." Maya pretended to check another table, but her eyes caught the faint reflection of his phone on the polished wine bottle. She saw numbers, a series of codes, and one word: Cayman. Her pulse quickened. That was the link, the account offshore where the funds were hidden. She turned toward the bar and whispered softly into her earpiece. "Target confirming transfer, I repeat. Target confirming transfer." Robert's voice came back instantly. "Good work, Collins. Keep recording, do not engage. We're setting the trace now." As she returned with the next course, Leonard looked up again, his voice booming across the restaurant. "Finally," he said sarcastically. "You're slower than my last assistant. Do you move at this pace for everyone, or am I just lucky?" The laughter from his table stung. Maya placed the plate carefully in front of him. "Apologies, sir, I'll try to be faster," she said calmly. Leonard leaned closer. "You should, because patience isn't something I pay for." His breath smelled of wine and power. Across the room, some guests exchanged uneasy glances. They could hear the insults but chose silence. Nobody ever spoke up to men like Leonard Crane. Maya straightened her posture, her face still polite, but her eyes cold and focused. Every word he threw at her only fueled her determination. What he didn't know was that while he mocked her, his phone had already connected to the restaurant's Wi-Fi, a network controlled by the CIA. Every message he sent, every transaction he approved, was being copied in real time to the agency's secure servers. He had no idea that his arrogance had opened the door to his own downfall. As the dinner went on, Leonard grew louder, angrier, more careless. "People like me run this city," he bragged. "You think these laws apply to everyone? Please, money rewrites the rules." He raised his glass high, his friends cheering half-heartedly. Maya stood quietly by the counter, pretending to organize napkins, but her eyes never left him. Then it happened, the breaking point. Leonard snapped his fingers loudly. "Hey, waitress," he shouted. "I asked for my dessert 10 minutes ago." The restaurant went silent. All eyes turned toward Maya. She walked over, her steps slow, controlled. "Apologies, sir. I'll bring it right away," she said softly. He laughed cruelly. "Maybe if you spent less time daydreaming, you'd be better at your job." His friends chuckled, one whispering, "She's cute, though." Leonard smirked. "Yeah, but too slow for my taste." His words were coated with arrogance and disrespect. Maya froze for a moment, then smiled. "Right away, sir," she said, inside. Her emotions clashed. Anger, sadness, focus, pride. But she couldn't break character, not yet. The mission was bigger than her feelings. She walked back to the kitchen, her heart racing. Her colleague looked at her, whispering, "He's unbelievable." Maya forced a small smile. "Some people show who they really are when they think no one's watching," she said. But someone was watching, her entire team, listening from the van outside, recording every second of his arrogance, every illegal transaction that came through his phone. As she plated the dessert, Robert's voice came through again. "Collins, we have confirmation?" "The transfer went through, we've got him. We'll move soon." She exhaled quietly, relief mixed with exhaustion. "Copy that," she whispered. When she returned to the dining room, Leonard was laughing loudly again. Completely unaware of what was unfolding, she placed the dessert gently in front of him. "Here you go, sir," she said. He looked at her with mock seriousness. "About time," he said. "Try not to take another century next time." Maya met his gaze for the briefest moment. Her eyes calm, steady, fearless. In that silence, there was a power he couldn't understand. For the first time, he looked uncertain just for a second. As he dug into his dessert, his phone buzzed again. He picked it up and frowned, not realizing the network connection had already been hijacked. His last message had gone straight to the CIA's main server outside in the van. Roberts turned to his team. "We have everything. Let's prepare the arrest." Inside, Maya took a quiet step back, watching him. The man who had mocked her, underestimated her, humiliated her, was moments away from losing everything. He laughed again, completely unaware, and Maya, standing in the soft light of the restaurant, whispered under her breath, "Justice takes time, sir. I hope you can wait." The night had grown quieter, the jazz softer, the lights warmer. Most of the dinner crowd had gone home, leaving a few guests still finishing desserts. Maya Collins stood near the counter, her heart steady but her mind racing. Tonight had been long, but she knew it wasn't over yet. The breaking point had passed, and now the truth was ready to rise. Leonard Crane leaned back in his chair, laughing too loudly. His arrogance was louder than the music. He didn't know that his phone, sitting right beside his glass of wine, was no longer his ally. Every secret message, every hidden transfer, every illegal move had already reached the CIA servers across the city. In the black surveillance van parked on the corner, Agent Roberts adjusted his headset. "Collins, data confirmed, he's done. We're moving in 10. Maya's earpiece buzzed softly. "Copy that," she whispered. She took a slow breath. Steadying herself around her, the restaurant looked peaceful. Waiters cleaning tables, glasses shining under golden chandeliers, but inside time felt thick, slow, and heavy. Each second carried the weight of justice ready to fall. Maya picked up a cloth, wiping an already clean table, pretending to stay busy. Her eyes kept drifting toward Leonard, still bragging, still mocking, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. Then the front doors opened. The restaurant manager stepped aside, thinking it was another late-night guest, but instead a man in a dark suit walked in. Followed by two others, they didn't look like customers. Their posture was firm, their movements silent and certain. Maya recognized them instantly. Federal agents in plain clothes. Her backup, the team that had been waiting for her signal. She looked down, pretending to fix her apron, and pressed the small button on her wristwatch. One final time Leonard was mid-sentence, bragging about how he owned half the city, when Maya walked toward him. Her steps were calm, each one echoing softly against the marble floor. The guests turned their heads, sensing something strange. Leonard frowned. You again? What now? Another slow apology? He sneered. Maya stopped right beside his table. Her voice was quiet but firm. Mr. Crane? She said. Dinner service is over. He chuckled. Is that supposed to be clever? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her apron pocket, pulled out a small leather badge and placed it gently on the table. The gold letters gleamed under the restaurant lights. Central Intelligence Agency. For a heartbeat, silence ruled the room. Even the music seemed to pause. Leonard blinked, confused. What kind of joke is this? He said, forcing a laugh. Maya met his eyes, her calm expression sharper than any threat. No joke, sir. You're under federal investigation for financial crimes, money laundering, and aiding international arms trafficking. The color drained from his face. His laughter died in his throat. His companions froze, their forks halfway to their mouths around them. Whispers spread through the room like ripples on water. Leonard tried to stand, but one of the plainclothes agents was already behind him. Leonard Crane, you're under arrest, the agent said firmly. Please remain seated. The billionaire's arrogance cracked, his voice rising. You don't know who I am. This is ridiculous. I own... Sit down, the agent interrupted. Calm but unyielding, Leonard's words stumbled, his mouth opening and closing. For the first time, he didn't have control. Maya watched him closely, her face still calm. Inside, she felt no pride, only quiet relief. Her mission was done. The man who had insulted her, humiliated her, and laughed at her was now just another criminal exposed by his own greed. The restaurant had fallen silent. The guests sat frozen, their eyes wide. The manager whispered, Maya, what's happening? She turned to him, her tone soft. I'm sorry for the confusion, sir. I can't say more right now. As Leonard's wrists were cuffed, he turned toward her, fury and disbelief in his eyes. You set me up, he hissed. She looked at him steadily. You set yourself up, sir. I just served the evidence outside. Flashing lights from unmarked cars washed the street in blue and white. The agents escorted Leonard through the restaurant, his expensive shoes clicking against the floor that once bowed to his presence. Now every step sounded like defeat. Reporters would arrive within minutes. But Maya was already slipping away through the back door. She walked down the quiet alley, her apron folded neatly in her hand. The cold night air touched her face, and for the first time in weeks she felt free. Her earpiece buzzed. Collins, excellent work, Robert said. You can stand down. She smiled faintly. Understood, she replied. Was he surprised? Roberts asked. Maya chuckled softly. You could say that. As she reached the end of the alley, she paused and looked back through the glass windows. She could see the restaurant glowing, elegant, calm, untouched. For everyone else, it would just be another story on the news, another fall from grace, but for her it was a reminder that power means nothing without integrity, that arrogance blinds even the smartest minds, that a simple waitress could hold the truth that toppled an empire. She took off her earpiece, letting the silence settle in. The city hummed around her, alive and indifferent. Maya slipped the badge back into her pocket and walked away, blending into the night like she had never been there at all. Back in the restaurant, people slowly began to speak again. A woman whispered to her husband she was CIA. He nodded, still stunned. Guess you never know who's serving your dinner. And outside, under the soft glow of the streetlights, Maya Collins disappeared into the city. Not as a waitress, not as a spy, but as a quiet reminder that justice doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears an apron and a smile. The night air outside the velvet room was cold, crisp, and strangely quiet. Police lights flashed against the tall glass windows, painting the restaurant walls in shades of red and blue. People walking by slowed their steps, whispering, pointing, trying to understand what was happening inside. Leonard Crane, once untouchable, now stood surrounded by federal agents. His face was pale, his arrogance gone. His expensive suit looked suddenly smaller. His eyes darted around the restaurant like a trapped animal searching for a way out. Leonard Crane, one of the agents said firmly. You are under arrest for financial crimes, international money laundering, and conspiracy to supply illegal arms. The words hit him like stones, each syllable heavy final. This is absurd, he barked, his voice cracking. I have lawyers? I'll have every one of you fired. His words were loud, but his confidence was gone. It wasn't a command anymore. It was fear wearing the mask of power. Two agents moved closer, one reading him his rights, the other securing his wrists in cold metal cuffs. Leonard flinched. Get your hands off me. Do you know who I am? He shouted, but no one answered around him. Diners whispered behind their hands, phones out, recording. The man who used to command attention now looked small beneath the flashing lights. And standing just a few feet away, Maya Collins watched quietly, her apron folded neatly in her hand, her eyes calm. She had seen this moment many times before, the instant when power collapses, when lies crumble, and truth stands taller than money ever could. Agent Roberts entered through the side door, his expression serious but proud. He walked straight to Maya. Excellent work, Collins, he said quietly. She nodded. It's done. Her voice was steady, almost emotionless. She wasn't celebrating. This wasn't victory. It was closure. Leonard turned toward her, his eyes burning with disbelief. You, he spat. You set me up. You little liar, Maya met his gaze, her face unreadable. I served justice, Mr. Crane, she said softly. You served your own destruction. The restaurant manager stood frozen behind the counter, his mouth slightly open. Maya, you're CIA? He whispered. She gave a faint smile. Not exactly something I could put on the job application, she said gently. Reporters began to gather outside, the sound of camera shutters filling the night. The agents led Leonard toward the door, but he resisted, his pride refusing to let go. I'll fight this, I'll destroy every one of you, he shouted. His voice cracked again, trembling between anger and fear. One agent replied calmly, You can explain that downtown, and pushed him forward. As he was escorted out, the crowd outside gasped. The same man who once appeared in business magazines, smiling on red carpets, now had his hands cuffed, his head slightly bowed. The world loved seeing power fall, wow, and tonight, it was falling hard. Maya stayed behind for a moment, letting the chaos fade. The restaurant staff gathered around her, half curious, half in awe. Was all of this real? One of them asked. She nodded. Every bit of it, she said softly. And I couldn't have done it without your patience. They exchanged glances, realizing the quiet, polite waitress who had taken orders with a smile had been living a double life. You fooled everyone, the bartender said. Shaking his head, Maya smiled faintly. That was the job. Outside, Leonard was placed in the back of a black car. He turned his head one last time toward the restaurant windows. His eyes met Maya's through the glass. For a second, neither spoke. The city noise filled the space between them. Horns, cameras, whispers. In that silent stare, he saw the truth. The waitress he mocked wasn't beneath him. She was the one who outsmarted him. The car door slammed shut, breaking the moment. The agent stepped inside and the vehicle pulled away. Disappearing into the river of lights and traffic, Maya exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders relax for the first time that night. The tension she had carried for weeks began to fade. She removed her earpiece and placed it gently into her pocket. Agent Roberts approached again. You handled yourself well, Collins, he said. Most people would have snapped after the first insult. She looked down, thinking for a second. People like him think insults make them powerful, she said quietly. They don't realize they're just revealing who they really are. Roberts nodded. You did the country proud tonight, she smiled. But it was a tired smile. I just did my job, she said. The people who really deserve the credit are the ones who keep believing in the system. Even when people like him try to break it. As the agents began packing up equipment, Maya took one last look around the restaurant. The lights were dimmer now, chairs stacked. The world slowly returning to normal. But nothing about tonight had been normal. A few waiters walked up to her, hesitant. Will we see you again? One asked. She shook her head. Probably not, she said. But take care of this place. It's worth protecting. She stepped outside, the cool wind brushing against her skin. The flashing lights were fading as the last police car drove off. The street was quiet again, just like any other night. Maya started walking down the sidewalk, the city stretching endlessly ahead of her. Her phone buzzed, made a secure message from the agency. Mission complete, stand by for next assignment. She smiled softly. No rest for the watchers, she murmured. As she disappeared into the crowd, her silhouette blended with the lights. To the world, she was just another face in the city, But somewhere deep in the night, her story had already become a whisper. The tale of the waitress who took down a billionaire. Back in the restaurant, someone found her forgotten name tag lying on the counter. Scratched but still shining. Maya Collins, it read, and beside it, the faint reflection of the CIA badge she'd left behind. A quiet reminder that sometimes justice doesn't roar. It walks softly, smiles politely, and serves truth with a steady hand. A week had passed since that unforgettable night at the Velvet Room. The story had spread everywhere, from breaking news headlines to late-night talk shows. Billionaire arrested after public outburst, the article said. Some called it karma, others called it justice. But to Maya Collins, it was just another mission completed. Another chapter closed. The restaurant reopened a few days later. Calm and elegant as always, yet something about it felt different now. The staff still talked about her, whispering between shifts. "Can you believe she was CIA?" One said. "She looked so normal." Another replied, "I mean, she was quiet, polite." Who would have guessed? Her name tag still sat behind the counter, placed inside a small frame by the manager, a silent tribute to the woman who had changed everything. Customers would glance at it sometimes and ask, was she really a secret agent? The staff would smile mysteriously. Let's just say she was special. Outside the restaurant, the city kept moving. Cars rushing, lights glowing, people hurrying. The world had already moved on to the next headline. But for those who had been there that night, the memory lingered. The image of Leonard Crane being led away in handcuffs stayed in their minds. A reminder that no amount of money can shield a person from truth. Maya, meanwhile, had returned to her quiet life, or at least the version of it that existed between missions. She sat by her apartment window, sipping black coffee, watching the sunrise paint the sky in soft orange. Her phone buzzed once, a secure message from the agency. "Excellent work, Agent Collins. Your actions led to the dismantling of a global network. Enjoy your downtime," she smiled faintly. Setting the phone aside, for once she allowed herself to feel proud. Not for the arrest, not for the headlines, but for the small things. The patience it took to stay calm under insult, the strength to stay invisible, the discipline to fight evil without anger. Her mind drifted back to that night, to Leonard's words, his arrogance, the way he had looked down on her. She didn't feel hate. She just felt a strange kind of pity. Money had made him powerful, but it had also made him blind. He had built walls around himself made of pride and greed, and in the end, those same walls had trapped him. Maya leaned back in her chair, thinking about how many people she'd met like him. People who mistook kindness for weakness, who believed power meant cruelty. She'd learned long ago that real strength isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and kind. Across town, Leonard Crane sat in a gray interrogation room, the same kind Maya had been briefed in before her mission. But this time, he was on the other side of the table. His suit was gone, replaced by a plain jumpsuit. His watch, his phone, his empire, and all taken. He stared at the wall in silence, realizing that no one was coming to save him. The people he had once paid to stay loyal had vanished, and for the first time in years he was truly alone. When the news played clips of his court appearance, people couldn't believe how different he looked. The man who once walked with his head high now kept his eyes down. Reporters said his fortune was frozen. His companies collapsing, his name ruined in a small way. Maya's mission had done more than catch a criminal. It had reminded the world that arrogance has a price. A week later, the restaurant staff held a quiet dinner after hours. They gathered at table 7, the same table where everything had happened. The manager raised a glass. "To Maya," he said softly, "wherever she is, may she always find peace," and everyone smiled. Some of them had never even known her real name, but they all felt the same. Gratitude, respect, admiration. Meanwhile, far from the city, Maya walked along a quiet pier by the ocean. The sun was setting, turning the water gold. She loved the sound of waves more than applause, the smell of salt more than perfume. The sea had no lies, no titles, no egos, only truth. She sat on the edge of the dock, her badge tucked safely in her pocket. She took it out for a moment, tracing the engraved letters with her thumb. The badge wasn't a symbol of power to her. It was a reminder of responsibility, of all the silent battles fought in places no one would ever know. A small child walked past her with his mother. Holding an ice cream, he smiled at her. "Are you a police lady?" he asked innocently. Maya laughed softly. "Something like that," she said. The boy nodded proudly. My mom says police keep bad guys away. Maya smiled. Your mom is right as the boy ran off. She looked out at the horizon. The wind brushed her hair, and she whispered to herself, sometimes bad guys wear suits. Sometimes good people wear aprons. The sky darkened and stars began to appear. Maya stood up, slipping her badge back into her jacket. Somewhere far away, another mission was already waiting. Another injustice to uncover, another mask to wear. But for now, she let herself breathe back in the city. The framed name tag at the Velvet Room gleamed softly under the lights. Every night as new customers came and went, someone would notice it and ask, who was Maya Collins? The staff would smile. Just someone who taught us that respect costs nothing, and that you never know who's watching. And so her story lived on, not in headlines or reports, but in whispers and lessons, in every person who remembered to treat others with kindness, in every heart that learned that true power lies in humility. Because Maya Collins wasn't just an agent, she was a mirror reflecting the truth that too many forget, that dignity is stronger than money, and respect is louder than arrogance. And though she vanished into the night like she always did, her lesson stayed behind, glowing quietly like the last candle in a dark room, a reminder that heroes don't always wear badges sometimes. They just serve tables and serve justice with a smile.